Council, February 22nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. If anybody hasn't tried the QR code to try to get the agenda, you're more than welcome to try to do that. There's only a limited number of paper agendas that are available. At this point in time, we have roll call. Israel?
Jack Fox.
Here.
Pat Richards.
Here.
Bob Wilson.
Here.
Patricia Martinez.
Here.
Tyler Kopp.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right,
Mr.
thank you
Chair.
very much, Israel. Next item on our agenda is the election of new officers for 2024. And I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to nominate Pat Richards as the chair.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No.
Okay, aye.
Okay, hold on. So that was Jack and,
All right, moving forward, we have the pledges of allegiance.
no, you have Vice Chair.
Vice Chair, I'm sorry. I'll entertain a motion for Vice Chair.
I motion that Bob Fulkerson, vice chair.
Do I have a second?
Who seconded?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Some things never change.
All right, yeah, never change. All right, we have a pledge of allegiance as our next item on the agenda. Pledge of allegiance is our next item on the agenda, so we can all stand.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can't talk without it.
All right, next item on our agenda is I'm gonna have to swallow it.
Yeah.
Is item number 5, the approval of minutes from Somis MAC meeting held on December the 13th. Have you all had an opportunity to review those minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
I move we accept the minutes.
Second.
Second, we have, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, item 6, the agenda review. Any comments with regards to the need to amend the agenda? Hearing none, we'll go forward with public comments. Public comments, I did receive a number of comments. Normally, public comments are associated with things that are not on the agenda, and I didn't know, people didn't identify.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
hold on, I'm sorry. We still have item number 7, which is the consent agenda, items 11 through 13.
Thank you. Everybody has reviewed the consent. Any need to change or amend? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept it.
Make a motion, we accept the consent.
You have to speak, you guys have to
I
speak.
make a motion that we can approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, we're on to public comments. Now, I did receive a number of cards. It looks like there's a number of them. There's one that's dealing with the water line project for farm worker housing. I didn't know if people wanted to wait until the presentation, which is kind of towards the end of the meeting, or whether or not you want to speak at this point in time.
Jim, I think, right?
Say again?
That's Jim.
Pat, why don't we move the public comment to the end?
Okay. All right, I'll save those cards and we'll have your comments and questions at the end. Okay, item number 9.
Everyone needs to put the mics to their mouths.
I'm not wild about these things.
Hold them real close, you guys.
All right, testing 1, 2, 3. Hey.
Yeah.
Why? Gee, I was going to make a comment, but I won't. All right. We have the Office of Ventura County, Jeff Gorell. I'm assuming he's in the audience.
Mr. Chair,
Ah.
good evening. Everybody, thank you for the opportunity to give you a quick update. I want to start by just thanking everyone, not just the residents for coming out, but some of our key folks to answer questions. Sergeant Orr from CHP, our deputy sheriff liaison, and Alex and Lisa to talk about the farm worker housing project. My staff and I asked these folks to come out and give updates or answer questions. And this is after a long day of work for everybody, late at night. And so I really appreciate them coming out and participating in our MAC meeting. I do want to say, I just ask everyone to be respectful of them and any kind of questions and answers that take place. And I just ask you to show that respect and rapport here for this municipal advisory council. A couple of things we're doing to try to drive attendance and interest in what's going on here in Somis and with the MAC. A couple of things we're doing is we've got new signage you might have seen out front. These are oversized lawn signs that my office spent money on. Israel's holding up one right there. These signs we've been placing all around town in the days leading up to our MACs so that people can be reminded that we've got the MAC, and then they can take their iPhone or their Google phone and they can scan that QR code and know what the agenda is, what issues we're covering. So we're trying to raise awareness and raise accountability and drive attendance. As you know, my office purchased some equipment, and we stream this live, so folks at home right now can watch this and can listen and learn what's going on down here. And then the last thing that we're doing is that instead of simply following the Brown Act, which requires us to send out the agenda 72 hours in advance, we're actually sending out a draft agenda 2 weeks before the MAC and having that out and available so that it's not just 72 hours right before the meeting and kind of a sneak attack on, oh, these are the issues that we got to get together and make sure we carve out the time to be there. I want the community to know what types of items we're looking at very early on, putting on the agenda so that you can get the word out and show up if they're important to you and your families. What are we doing at the Board of Supervisors? We're tackling all kinds of things. We've got labor agreements with all of our county employees, from everybody from doctors to deputy sheriffs. We're working on our correctional officers and our probation officers as well. We're handling all those negotiations right now and trying to settle work contracts with them for the next 3 or 4 years. We're addressing housing. There was recently a point-in-time count where the civilians in every community, including Somis, went out and counted those that they could see in the community that were homeless. And on Tuesday, we're going to be taking action. It appears that point-in-time count will show what we thought is the case, and that is that homelessness continues to go up in Ventura County. It doesn't go up in every part of the county, but it goes up in some significant areas. So on Tuesday, we're going to be taking action and voting on some potential leadership in the county level to jump in and try to streamline some of the permitting that we require for shelters, for emergency shelters, wraparound services, housing, and other kind of homelessness projects. Try to get a czar involved that can help us streamline some of these projects so they're not held up for so long. We'll be doing that on Tuesday. The Queensland fruit fly, it was found here in Ventura County, and it was the first place in North America that was found outside of Australia. There's a meeting that's going to be held on February 28th at 2 p.m. In Santa Paula. Israel has flyers on that meeting. The staff from California Department of Food and Ag and Ventura County Ag Commission are going to talk a little bit about the results of their months-long investigation into this Queensland fruit fly and what to do and where we're going to go from here. So that'll be important. I'm going to try to attend that myself. And then last but not least, I just want to really again thank Alex Pratt for being here, the Vice President of AmCal Housing, to speak on this Somis Ranch Farm Worker Housing Project. I know that I've heard from so many of you and others about their questions about this project, and so this is a good opportunity to hear about it, ask those questions, and have them answered. They're my guests here tonight. I asked them respectfully to be here, and in return, I ask everyone to be respectful of them being here as well, because I know that there's a lot of questions and a lot of people here, so we're going to get through all those. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to present, Mr. Chair, members of the MAC, and members of the community. And I'll be hanging in the back for a little bit if you need me. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. I see we have representatives from the CHP and also the Sheriff's Department. If they'd like to make any comments, I'd appreciate it.
All right, good evening. If you don't know, Sergeant Orr from the CHP up at Caneo, which is the scales facility at the top of the grade. This is the most people we've ever had at a MAC meeting, I would say, in a long time. So just to give you an idea, we just handle the semi-trucks in and out of the facility, but we also handle the 118 that you guys probably noticed is closed down. We are still closed on the northbound side up on the grade. Construction's actually just about done with that, so we should be back open hopefully next month. They just finished up a few little things. As far as the 118, eastbound we call it, you see that it's got the K-rail up, they got the signs up that say construction. We had an issue with the contractor. It looks like there was some county issues. They had to redo the building plan, so that's back up and running. So you probably will see construction, some people out there in the next week or two getting back together and actually getting that moving forward so we can get that done. Besides that, we got nothing else. We've been working kind of the county areas. Since our facility's been down, we use the extra officers to kind of drive around on the 118, Santa Rosa Road, and some of the other county areas to look for trucks that are bypassing some of the scales facilities. So that's about it that we have. Anybody have any questions for me?
I have a question for you.
Go for it.
I saw something in the newspaper about a week ago at Birkinshaw Corner. Do you know I'm talking about Birkinshaw Corner? Just a little bit east of your station there by Grimes. Okay. It looked like some sort of a plan for a way station on Birkinshaw side, the homemaker side of the road. Like there was an off-ramp and an on-ramp or something there.
Yeah, so
pretty hard to see. What do you know about that?
You're talking about a new facility being built there?
Yeah.
You're talking about closer to
Moore Park,
right? The city limits?
Right there on the right on the corner.
Yeah, right on the corner where the everybody crashes.
Where the big pink house is with
Yeah.
the boards on it. That's
Yeah.
Birkinshaw's
So-
old house, so that's why it's called Birkinshaw Corner.
So they first started this facility that we already have in place. They were going to upgrade it, add a building, redo the K-rail to keep the officers and the civists safe from traffic going through. It looks like that's going to go forward. The plan that you're talking about, Bob, is a further plan in the next probably, I'm looking like probably 5 to 10 years, but they're looking to build a bigger facility around that field area before that turn. Those plans are still way into the works, so you're not going to see that for a long time.
Well, it's just in the newspaper.
Go ahead.
Recently, up on La Cumbre, there were about a dozen tires stumped. Who would we contact? Is it just Camarillo Sheriff's Department, or?
So you can contact Moore Park CHP and let them know that there's been some illegal dumping. The phone number, I think, is 553-0800, or just look it up online. The other thing you can do is call the county. So the county is responsible for like dumping and stuff like that. Tires and things, sometimes you can just take them to recycling if you see them out and about.
Yeah. There was someone probably sat back of the truck. And
Yeah,
just
and
dumped
the
them.
trash company won't take them. They'll take them out of the trash can and leave them back on the road for you, so.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
How often are these truck stations open?
So right now, we're open Monday through Fridays. When we have enough officers to man all the facilities, we will. Typically, they start about 5 to 5:30 in the morning to be out. Like on the 118, it might take them a little longer to get out there because they gotta come from our facility. They work all day up until probably about 6, 7 o'clock at night on the 118 when it's getting dark. And then they'll go back up to our facility and work until about 10:30, 11 o'clock at
What
night.
percentage of the time do you think you have manpower to keep those open? Because they're very frequently
Yeah, no, the westbound's been open the entire time. We've had people out there almost every day on what we call the westbound side, so that's coming towards us. That's that facility that's there. The eastbound side is the one that's closed right now.
Yeah.
So we're catching trucks that are coming westbound, and then the extra guys we're sitting on like Santa Rosa and stuff, because we get a lot of complaints of people bypassing on Santa Rosa Road.
Yeah, it just seems that it isn't manned
Yes, sir.
very often.
On Somis Road, right through here, there's some parking restrictions about height of vehicles, and there's some areas where there is no parking.
You're talking right through the main part of where
Right.
the post office is and everything. Yeah.
My question is, who is responsible for enforcing those laws? And is it the sheriff, is it highway patrol, or is it the county sheriff?
It's the highway patrol, so it would be
And then my
that.
second question would be, I'd love to know, how many tickets have ever been issued in the last year regarding violations of those parking restrictions?
So I can't answer that question because that's not my jurisdiction, but it is CHP. It's at the Moore Park office. They would have all the statistics of what they've done and stuff like that. I do know because I used to work at Moore Park. This is the first time that question's come up and a concern. So one of the issues is Somis is very small. For you guys to go to the store and stuff like that and give them business is one issue. When people are passing by, especially in some of these bigger vehicles like the semi-trucks, they want to actually provide business to them, stop, and sometimes they're illegally parking. So we'll get a phone call saying, hey, there's trucks sitting out there. By the time a unit gets over there, when he's done doing whatever he's doing, that truck is now gone because he's already got his stuff restored and now it's gone. When you're talking about like oversized vehicles like campers and things like that, just sit there for a while, that's a different story than, you just call and then they'll come out and take a look and try to go over. Does that answer it?
It's every day right by some parking.
All you gotta do is call the Moore Park CHP office and do what's called a traffic complaint, so they have more information than what you're seeing at times and stuff like that. Okay. Anything else? All right, thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much. I believe there's a representative from the Sheriff's Department.
Good evening. Senior Deputy Gonzalez with the Sheriff's Office. I'm the beat coordinator for this area. For right now, the only thing that the Sheriff's recommends is we have been getting some thefts from mailboxes. So for those that especially live on Loma and Bradley, those are the areas that have been getting hit with mail theft. At the point that they actually are prying open the lock boxes or even taking the whole box. So we recommend that if you are expecting mail, make sure you pick it up as soon as it gets delivered. That way you don't accumulate a lot of mail and a lot of mail gets stolen. The other thing that is a worry is we do have some teenagers at the high school age that are still playing water assassin games. And it's just teenagers around town, might be even here in Somis, where they're just trying to capture, it's usually the seniors trying to capture somebody from the lower grades, and they're just shooting with water guns. So we recommend them not to get involved in that activity, but it's not illegal for them because it's water guns. The only recommendation for parents that do have teenage kids involved in those games, make sure that they're not using any type of guns that are looking realistic at all. So make sure that they completely look like toy guns, not realistic. The other thing is for anybody that wants to participate, I know today was the first day of the Camarillo Citizens Academy, and if those that have not attended the academy, it's just a 10-week course that you attend once a week, and it's just, it gives you an insight of what a police officer does in different areas of investigation, or patrol, or the jail, or what the department has to offer. The next one, I believe, is in September. So usually the department, as well as the Camarillo Station, has 2 citizens academies per year. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
If you find that the prying open of the lock boxes, do we need to report something like that?
Definitely, yes,
Okay.
yes. Even if you don't want us to arrest the person, right, prosecution against them, at minimum, call us so that we can log the activities that are occurring. That way we can concentrate on that area if it's occurring more in that area.
And that would be the sheriff's office in
Correct. Sheriff's Office here in Camarillo.
in Camarillo?
Yes. It's very frustrating for us, and I'm sure for you guys,
And the
because
post office.
they're trying to take as many preventive measures, and they're still breaking into them. So it's just unfortunately, it's just a matter of catching them on time, and hopefully the cameras, if you do have cameras set up, make sure you clean the lenses once in a while. That way we don't get a distorted image.
Okay, so it is important for you to report if
Definitely,
it's-
definitely.
and
Let's say
everybody
because,
else-
let's say because if your mailbox gets tampered with, but nothing gets stolen, you might think, well, I'm not gonna report it because nothing got stolen. But you never know, this time, maybe you saw the plate of the vehicle, or maybe you saw the description of the suspect, any information that might help us find who the thieves are.
That's very helpful, thank you.
Yes, sir.
What can the average citizen do to restrain this individual?
We definitely don't recommend for anybody to get involved in restraining somebody, because you don't know if they're armed, and you don't know what type of person this suspect is. Some of them are becoming violent, some of them are just out there to, get your mail and get out of there, but you don't know. So we definitely don't recommend you guys getting involved. We recommend you guys calling us and just get the better description you get, whether it be facial, body, or even a license plate or a vehicle description. That would help us a lot.
First hand, take a picture of it. A little bit more in my neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
Last time we got our mail taken, I went to the post office and filed with the postal, whatever it is.
The clerk?
He didn't mention anything about mentioning it to the sheriff's department. Maybe they should be contacted saying it needs to be reported to the sheriff's department.
Right, and and you have that choice too, to report it to the postal clerk, because the inspector is the one that are also investigating mail thefts. But because it's a vandalism, they break into the mailboxes, it's also part of the sheriff's office. So you can either contact either one of us.
But do you guys keep in touch?
I believe the detectives do, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Isn't it a federal offense?
Yes, it is. That's why you call the postal inspector.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So, Israel, I think you had a comment?
I had a question for the gentleman from Supervisor Burrell's office. I don't know if it's appropriate to ask it now. He said he's going to be here for a little while, so I don't know when the best time to ask him is.
He's still in the building.
Here, you can ask.
So, you said that, oh, thank you. You said that the supervisor's office was looking to speed up the process of getting the homeless off of the streets in Ventura County. And I just want to know if you can tell us today, is there absolutely no way that the farm housing that's here, title can be changed and all of a sudden become a homeless shelter or a shelter for illegal aliens at the expense of the taxpayers?
I don't see that happening.
So it can't happen?
Yeah, I don't see that happening without a zoning change, planning commission, a series of meetings that would be public events with input, and then ultimately a board vote, a board of supervisors vote. But I don't see that happening. And furthermore, the SOAR initiative that is many of you are aware of. The SOAR initiative is countywide, and it's in all of our cities, all 10 cities. It's Save Our Agricultural Resources, and it says that anything that is zoned agriculture can't be changed without a vote of the people in the community around it. Except with an exception of farm worker housing.
Right.
And that's why you've been hearing more about farm worker housing. That exception does not say except farm worker housing, homelessness housing, immigration housing. It's just specifically speaks to farm worker housing. It's an initiative that was voted on by voters and cannot be changed by the Board of Supervisors or by this MAC or by anybody in this room individually. It was instituted as a law by the vote of the people.
So, okay, I will take that what you're saying is it absolutely will not happen, and we'll hold you to that.
Thanks. Please do.
with what you're saying about the farm worker housing, so this would have to be for farm workers, right? Only, because it fell under SOAR, it was agricultural property, it's farm worker housing, so everyone in there has to be farm workers, correct?
It's got to be farm worker housing. How that's specifically detailed, I actually don't know the answer to that, but we can get somebody
Whoa.
here. We can get somebody here from the planning department we can get somebody here from. There you go. The answer's coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why the speakers are.
I would be guessing, and I don't want to do that. I want to bring somebody here from our Ventura County Planning Department that can say, here are the four corners of the definitions that were approved by voters in the SOAR initiative when they created the exception for farm worker housing, and here's what that looks like. So,
I posed that question already here at a meeting here,
Yeah.
and I was told by the developers, and whoever represented them, that it was only going to stay farm housing. So I questioned what happens if that retired farmer or person that was representing the farm housing moved out, and reluctantly they finally told me that that particular house would be vacated. They'd have to move out. And there was also another question that I'll just bring up now that I had about they have 2 people per bedroom. So 1 bedroom is 2 people, 2 bedrooms 4 people, 3 bedrooms 6 people. I said, what if somebody gets pregnant a couple of times? And finally, reluctantly, they said they would have to move out. So we're going to hold that, we're going to hold you to that. That's what I was told by the people that represented, I think, the county and the developer.
some of these questions will be answered tonight. If you're left at the end of this evening with unanswered questions, please submit them to Israel, and we will go to the planning department and get very specific answers. We can then get them to you specifically, or we can post them on the website, or both, but we are happy to answer questions.
That's great. I was also told it's in the contract, because I asked that question as well.
Yeah, probably is. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. These are now becoming comments about an item on the agenda, so we should probably get back to you.
I was just going to say.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
And you have a limited time period also, I understand. All right, thank you. All right, at this point in time, we have council comments. Anybody from the fire department?
Their report is in the.
Yeah, Israel, you want to?
Yeah, I just want to let you guys know that you were able, if you haven't already, you can go to the QR code over here. There's also one in the front. You can use your phone and scan, and you can get the agenda. On the agenda are all the safety reports. So we have them from the Sheriff Department, CHP, and also fire. So it should be, and then you can keep that in your phone. There was one other item I forgot, but anyway, I'll think of it later. So did everyone scan it, or did most people scan it? Let's see. Did it help? Okay. It helps us from printing up a lot of documents.
We'll keep trying. So, any council comments? Anything that you wish to talk about? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward with the agenda, our regular agenda. Item 14, review of amended 2024 municipal advisory calendar. Has everybody had a chance to look at that calendar? Okay. Israel, do we need a motion to adopt?
We do.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the calendar for 2024.
Approve the calendar.
Second it.
Okay, we have a first and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on our agenda.
And that's something that the audience should be aware of also, is that we publish that.
We do, and it's also in their packet.
So that everybody's aware.
Here.
So that everybody is aware, we just voted on a calendar for the year. So make sure that that gets distributed to everybody so that you're aware of what the next one is, and then what we'll do is we'll get out the agendas so you know what's going to be included. That'll be on the website.
And you should have it, if you scanned, it's part of the documents, and right here. So the next meeting, for instance, is on April 11th, and the time here is always from 7 to 9, same location. So Reason why it's a little later, there's some baseball games that we were always competing with, and so the parents asked if we could move it to 7. So that's what your calendar looks like, and you have it for the rest of the year. Okay, all right, any questions on that? All right, thank you.
Okay, one of our last items on the agenda is a presentation by Mr. Pratt from AmCal. You'd like to introduce yourself, sir?
Hello. Glad to see a big group of folks here to find out about the Somis Ranch project. My name is Alex Pratt, and I'm the Vice President of Development for AmCal Multi-Housing. And I'm going to give a little information. I'm going to run through a little slide presentation. Feel free to answer any questions, but I just want to kind of familiarize you with the project overall and about who we are briefly. And then we'll answer any questions you have as exhaustively as you have them. And as the supervisor mentioned, if there's some questions that we don't have the answers for, then we'll make sure that we get those answers and get them to you in a forum where you can all have access to them. So it'll be a little strange, and kind of go back and forth through my little slides. I can do it though. All right, so we actually been in business for 45 years. The gentleman in that picture is Percy Vaz. He's actually an immigrant from India, he and his wife started this company, like a lot of tech companies, in their garage 45 years ago, selling individual HUD homes.
Mr. Kind of Pratt, can I interrupt you for just a second? Can everybody hear Mr. Pratt?
Okay, let me,
Okay,
all right, and I'll hold the microphone so that will walk
thank you.
back and forth. Maybe that'll make it a little easier. Okay, so he started this company 45 years ago. He and his wife, Lux Vaz, both still working there, still working 7 days a year, 7 days a week after all these years. Has become a very successful company, has done a total of, I don't know what that is, $9.6 billion portfolio value, but overall about 10,000 units of affordable housing in that time. And we operate both in all over the state of California, in Texas, and in the state of Washington.
A little closer.
A little closer? Okay, sorry about that. And along with affordable housing, we also do market rate housing, and we do some student housing for various universities. So we've been in business a long time, and we are a long-term owner of all of our developments. So that means that when we buy something, we develop something, we don't just build it and then walk away. We actually own it for years. So we become stakeholders in the communities that we operate in. So we have just as big an interest in keeping that property in good condition as you do as neighbors, because of course it's not going to be worth anything to any of us if it degrades. As the Somis project, we did it in 2 phases. You know, it's on 18 acres there at Somis Road. Phase 1 is 200 units. Phase 2 is 160 units. And as you were discussing, there's a question about the occupancy requirement, and there has to be at least someone from the farm worker industry. So that's actually an agricultural worker. You don't have to be a farm worker. So you could be an agricultural worker working at Ag Land Services, doing maintenance. And if you meet the income requirements, then you're considered an agricultural worker, and you could qualify to be in this Somis development. Now, I'll give you the income requirements as we walk through this in further detail, as well as the occupancy requirements and parking and some other things I know you've been concerned about. This just kind of gives the overall picture of the site. I think you know where that is, and the 2 phases. Phase 1 is the phase that's closest to Somis Road. Phase 2 is the one that's behind it. Phase 1 is the one that's getting ready to complete. This just kind of shows the access points, those 2 entries. The main entrance is that one at the bottom, coming in on the bottom into Somis Road. The secondary access is from the top. And that's to make sure there's 2 ways of accessing it for the fire department. That gives kind of a layout of the overall development. Again, phase 1 being on the left side, phase 2 being on the right side. And just kind of in terms of a timeline, if you've gone past, you realize that we've made quite a bit of progress. It takes a long time to get these developments into place. And I guess we started about 2 years ago. And so we are actually going to start occupancy next month. So we will start to occupy those first 200 units next month. Phase 2 will start leasing in August, and we expect to be complete with Phase 2 by December. So that's the overall timeline for the development. And high-quality amenities just gives you some sense of what the developments look like. If you drive by there, you can see what the buildings look like, very similar to this. And they're 2- and 3-story Spanish style. We have playgrounds, there's a community center, basketball courts, there's Energy Star equipment, barbecues, etc. There'll be classes that'll be performed at the community center, such as computer literacy classes, English as a second language, all kinds of classes that, depending on what the people in the community are interested in, we'll do surveys on that. The project details in terms of the unit mix, I'm going to go one by one. So this is in the first phase. And so we have, and I'm going to get into what this AMI stands for, area median income, which there's just like an area, like Ventura will be an area, and then there's kind of like who's in the average or the median income for that area. So this just kind of gives the range, the breakdowns, and I'll give you the incomes in a moment. But you see that it varies from 30% area median income up to 60% of the area median income is the range of folks that we have in the development. And then this gives kind of an overview of, for the entire development, it just kind of breaks down how many 1-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms, and 3-bedrooms are in each part or in the project overall, shows the size of the bedrooms, the units, it's saying bedroom, but 1-bedroom unit's 540, 2-bedroom 770, and a 3-bedroom unit is 1,046. And it just kind of runs again through some of the amenities. This is some of the income information. I know this talk about AMIs is very hard to follow, but this gives you what those incomes really are. So if you're in the 30% AMI, that means that your income, if you're a family of 2, is around, let's say, excuse my ability to read, about $31,800. And then that's what your rent would be, about $747. Now, the whole philosophy behind affordable housing nationwide is the idea that many people who don't have the income to afford housing can be spending 50 and 60% of their gross income on rent. And so the entire metrics for how affordable housing is set up is to ensure that anyone who comes in there is not paying more than 30% of their income on rent by itself. So they have additional money to do things for like school and recreation and other activities, as opposed to being like many of us here are in Southern California, totally slaves to our property and the cost of living. So you see that there's like 36 folks who are in 30% AMI units, and then it kind of goes up 40 in the 40% AMI units, 68 in 50%, and 212 in 60%. And then you can see what the rents and the income levels are depending on the number of folks in the units. Are there any questions about that? Just kind of as we're talking about the incomes, because I know that's go ahead. Oh, okay. Oh, all right, okay. I just wanted to see. So if there are any questions about this income restriction, I'll just come back to this chart and you can take a quick look at it. I think it might be, yeah, that's actually my last chart. So that's just kind of some of the basics. I didn't want to spend a lot of time, tooting our own horn. I wanted to really spend more time talking about the project as a whole. I think as a general comment, I'll just say that affordable housing has tended to be focused on the inner cities and on urban areas. And I think a lot of what has happened, and one of the objections I've had to a lot of affordable housing, is what we call kind of the ghettoization of affordable housing, where areas where there are already low-income people, we take new housing and we throw them all into slightly newer housing, but they're all in the exact same situation. And part of what the state of California has worked hard at, and other folks are trying to work hard at, is moving that around so that people are in different kinds of areas. They're not all in one area. There are homeless people in Ventura, there are homeless people in South Los Angeles, there's homeless people in all kinds of areas, and there's people who need affordable access to homes in all kinds of areas. I know that all the folks here know that the farm worker economy, or the farming and agricultural economy, is a critical part of Los Angeles, of the state of California. And so it's very important that we have decent, quality housing for the farm workers who are helping to feed really the entire country. And this is a very, very definitive effort to do that. I think it's a tremendous shame that you have folks who are out here who have been working many, many years, many generations here on farms to feed the whole state and the whole country. And they're some of the last folks who are getting access to decent, quality, affordable housing. So that is the move that we're making right now. We're doing it in our very best that we can. I think our reputation is for doing high-quality housing. Again, we've been in this business a long time. You can look into our reputation. We've owned properties 20 and 30 years that are still in very, very good condition today and are being maintained. I know one of the people had raised a question about could this turn into homeless housing or some other kind of housing. The simple answer is no, it could not. We would have to sell it and we have to go through a massive regulatory change in order. So there's a restriction on here. It goes for 55 years that requires it to be affordable housing. That comes from the state. That's part of the funding that comes with it. And then as the supervisor mentioned, there's all kinds of zoning restrictions to designate exactly how it works. So the agreements and the regulatory agreements that run with this particular development mean that this is the income range of the folks that are going to be there. So if you were homeless, then you wouldn't be able to afford there. If you were someone who was not a farm worker, you wouldn't be, or not in the agricultural industry, you wouldn't be able to be there. And obviously, in order to be a farm worker or be in the agricultural industry, that means you're working. So you're talking about working people who need access to quality, affordable housing. So frankly, I'm from a poor area in Detroit. That's how I got into this business, and I've been proud to house thousands of people over the years that I've spent developing affordable housing. So I look forward to answering your questions and open that to the floor.
That end your presentation. Thank you
That's
very
my
much.
presentation.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
So I have some speaker cards that I'd like to get through before turning it over to other individual. Christina Garish?
Yeah. Thank you. I did have a couple questions before I started, but after 55 years, what happens? Since you said it's bound by 55.
Well,
I mean, most of us will be.
yeah,
like
I've got to admit, I
90-something.
haven't been involved in any of that. We started 55 years ago. Actually, this entire program started in 1986 under Ronald Reagan, believe it or not, that long ago. So we actually haven't been through it for 55 years. The way they're financed, most developments will have to go through a refinancing process and are likely to stay affordable, but there's not a requirement as part of the regulations that they remain affordable after 55 years.
I see.
But usually they've gotten soft funding from the state or from cities, and all those loans would ultimately have to be paid back in order to get out from under that regulatory structure. But it is conceivable.
Was this in accordance to the bill that was passed requiring all the cities to provide affordable housing? And if so, was it under Camarillo's or Somis? Because I know there was legislation that
It wasn't.
required.
It's not based on that. It didn't come because of a new bill that's happened.
Okay.
There's been the ability to provide affordable housing for quite a while. So this isn't a new regulation that forced Camarillo or Ventura County to do affordable housing. There have been new rules that have made it easier to get affordable housing done in various areas. But I think, as you mentioned, the SOAR initiative and the way the agricultural housing is handled in Ventura County puts additional restrictions on that beyond what you would find in other cities and jurisdictions.
Okay. And we're also talking about the one that's being built, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Isn't there a proposed new site closer to the 118 that's also being proposed that was bought by your company?
And that's the one that...
Real quick, that was not bought by AmCal. It was bought by the person that owned this property and sold to AmCal, just so everybody's clear.
There is a new project at the county right now, but it's up on North Ventura Avenue. It's in the Ventura area of the county.
Okay, so it's not near Somis Road, 118.
Like I said, the person that owned this got the permits and sold to AmCal, bought a parcel right here, recently. That's what you're talking about.
And
What he's
he
gonna
owns
do
a
with
lot
it,
of
we don't
land
know,
that-
but a lot of
he owns
people
a lot
have
of
some
land in the
ideas of what we think he's
Okay.
gonna do.
Yes, that's what I'm concerned about, is that you're gonna do the exact
But
same thing.
that's not them. They bought it from him. Once he already got the entitlements, then they bought it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't buy the property that we have now in order for us to be able to develop it. He owned it as farmland for years, so he owns a lot of property in the county. Obviously, there's a number of large property owners, and I think he just, after he sold that, decided to buy something else. But it has nothing to do with us, and I really only heard about it in preparation for this meeting, that he owned that
Okay.
property.
So that's a future MAC meeting then.
Maybe.
Okay, so I just wanted to express my strong opposition to what you guys are doing, mostly because of the high density that you're proposing for this area. It's a very big bait and switch, I feel, for a lot of the voters in this area. But also, I'd like to address the main strain that you're going to be putting on our current strained infrastructure, our schools, roads, healthcare facilities that are already nearing capacity. Longer commutes, congested roads. There's already been accidents getting in and out of that area. There's no infrastructure, there's no lights, there's nothing going on right there. And so also damage to the local ecology, since you're not providing sewer hookups. You have an open pool cesspool that could essentially drain into our water table, which I'm super concerned about. Not to mention the local animals, ecology. We have a very unique situation out here with the farmlands and the housing. So I'm concerned about that. The encroachment on that, the ecosystem there. The demand for water is a big strain on our local area. I mean, you know we're in a drought. Even though we've had record numbers, we're still in a drought. Also, the local power grid, we're already have experienced many brownouts, blackouts, extended periods of time for power outages because of the demand for power, especially during the prime time hours. I just don't think that we can stand by idly and let you do this and potentially expand to the area that I was talking about. Also, I don't know that you guys have actually set up accountability for your housing office. So like he was saying earlier, if people move out, who's holding you accountable? Are there people actually going to be checking your books to see whether or not you've kicked people out? Because I know California will not kick people out. It is a very renter-friendly state, and in that, you're not going to be following what you guys have been saying all along. So I have a big problem with that. It also would increase not only traffic, water usage, power, schools, local ecology, and the cesspool, but we've actually seen that you've had a hard time actually putting farm workers in there, and that you're going to be putting it towards more of Section 8 housing, because even on the website it says there's a certain percentage of the housing that it's available to just low-income housing.
Christina,
We have a 3-minute.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a
Last question is, aren't most farm workers in Ventura County true migrants? Like they go with the flow of when things need to be harvested? Or are they actual permanent residents? Because if you have someone that's here for 8 months for the farming season, what happens? You can't sign a lease for 8 months and then kick people out. So that was my last question.
Thank you, Christina.
I can address a couple of those. I don't know.
Sure,
I can't
go
address
ahead.
everything that was
No,
said.
go ahead.
You have to excuse my memory. I don't know that I'll remember everything. Let's start with the sewer. Typically, what we do is we connect to a sewer line wherever we happen to be. This is the first time that we've been required to create our own water reclamation facility. But we were, because the city of Camarillo did not allow us to connect to their sewer system. So we did our own. Fortunately, it just happens to be part of what you can do when you're a relatively sophisticated developer that's been in business for a very long time. So there is no cesspool. There will be a system that will clean the water, that will clean the effluent that comes out of the stormwaters and out of the apartment building. And then also some part of that will go through the Cayugas pipeline, which is going out the same as the desalination plant that's next to that. And then part of that water will be cleaned and will be reused for agricultural uses. So in fact, we'll actually be improving the water table in the sense that we will be using less water. The farmers who are next to us, adjacent to us, will be using less water from the water table than they otherwise would be. So we actually will be having less of an impact than you think.
So we get more people but less food? Because if we're not using it for farm work, or if we're not actually using it for the farm, we're using it for the people?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to speak to the entire economy and whether 360 units using water and a sewer treatment plant affects the amount of food that's coming out of Central Valley. So I can't speak to that in and of itself.
We need to move along. We've got a number of speakers.
On the school side, I can tell you that every development we do has to pay school fees. So we pay our share of school fees, which is part of how schools get built. So we don't do that without paying the fees and the costs associated with it.
Thank
So
you,
there's
Mr.
a fee for
Pratt.
every student we're going to put in.
We have Joe Rice, our next speaker.
I guess I'm a little bit confused. Your project is 360 units, right?
That's correct.
Are we talking about, and you've built 200 units so far, right? Or roughly?
200 are just about complete, and then the other 160 are
And so
close
are
to
we,
being complete.
are we debating or questioning whether you build the next phase? Is that what this is all about? No, it isn't. My question, this development's already been approved, right?
Correct.
And we're just talking about nothing right now.
Correct.
Am I wrong about that?
Well, I think
We're-
people.
We're
wanna
babbling about
understand.
something that has already been approved, and there's nothing any of us can do about what's already been built. So all your questions essentially are meaningless right now. I mean, I appreciate them, but this has already been approved, and we're done with that. I think what we're here for is this potential other development similar to it. Am I wrong about that? Am I right about that? Okay, so let's talk about the next one. However, I do want to say, sorry?
We want to make sure these are really farm workers and.
Right, the truth is in the pudding. I mean, I think we're all smart enough to realize that government sometimes is not very good at managing these things and making sure these people are really farm workers and they really meet these income requirements. My concern about your development, sir, and I thank you, you've been very eloquent and I appreciate your comments, is we have not yet experienced the traffic that's going to be on Somis Road. And that's my concern. And I said that in that old video thing the other night. Right now, we come off of that stoplight, and it's like the NASCAR races. Who's going to get into the lane fastest, and who's going to jockey in front of it? Now, add to that 2 more entrances onto that same road with literally hundreds of cars coming in at the same time. This is going to be a giant mess. And I'm sorry?
50 miles an hour.
50 miles?
50 miles an hour.
Yeah, okay, so thank God my daughter grew up and moved to Michigan already, because she would wind up like one of these gals on Blackberry Lane who got toasted out here on 118. I am really concerned about that. And so I guess my good question, and I'm done with my 3 minutes, is Highway Patrol, what are you guys going to do about all that?
What's that? Oh, yeah. I'll be
So
happy
I'm
to.
not sure. Okay, go ahead. I wasn't sure if there's a question that for me. So
I don't think there was a question directed to you. It was to
Okay.
the CHP. I have another speaker, Debbie Rice.
I have a question. Have you guys built any other farm working housing anywhere in California?
No, we have never. This is the first farm worker houser.
Okay.
Well, again, let's be clear. I'm not sure what your perception is of farm workers, but let me finish. My understanding is just that there are people who can't afford to pay the rent in these particular units. Now, I can say I've personally done thousands of units that and met people like that. So it's not something unique that they just come in at the end of the day of work and they pay their rent and that's it. What's different about being a farm worker? I don't really follow.
It's a whole new, it's a whole new way of doing affordable housing and how you're doing it. It would be kind of nice to be able to go look at another place in another area that you've done this and see how successful.
Well, we've done other large developments, and we have developments with hundreds of units in Texas, and we have a 394-unit development we just finished up in Antioch, California, which is an hour north of Oakland. So we have developments all over the state. I mean, I think that's the reason why the county selected us, is because we're a very, very experienced developer. So this is not new to us. I mean, I think if you go to the development, I think you'll see that it's very high-quality development. People have asked about whether or not the government actually enforces the regulations. This is a very, very highly regulated area of business. We have audits every single year, so we have an audit for every year. We have certification of every tenant that goes in there, that goes through an audit process, and then they're recertified annually. So it's not something where we toss in just anybody and then it just happens and we all go away and couldn't care less. It's very, very highly regulated. There is not a requirement that you be a U.S. citizen in order to access affordable housing anywhere in the state. Anywhere, no matter where you are. It has nothing to do with whether you're a farm worker or not.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Next speaker is Jim Pellerino. He just spoke. It's on, it's on the water line. Is he here? Oh, he already spoke?
We gotta, let's hold that one off.
Well, I do have a question for the project. I also have a question for the later, but yeah.
Let's do the water line a little later.
The water line later, yeah.
Want to do this really?
I do have a question about the second phase, the development of the second part of it.
Okay.
Because you're required to have fire protection for it. And I don't know how in the world you have fire protection for it. I don't know what the requirements were. I'd sure like to know what they were, because I worked with the system, and I don't see any way that that system could provide fire protection for those units and sustain a minimum amount of pressure for the rest of the zone.
Okay.
So I'd like to know that answer.
Okay. That is a very technical question. And in that it's not one I think that all of us could follow or I could properly explain. I can only tell you that the planning department put us through a process. There's fire hydrants throughout the building. We've done this many times. We built all the infrastructure, the streets, the lines, and the fire lines. Those are all fire flow tested to make sure they maintain the right level of pressure.
Okay.
The entire buildings are sprinkled throughout.
How did you fire flow test them prior to putting them in? How do you know how much you have?
There's an engineering model that is done to determine how thick each pipe needs to be, how long the run needs to be, and what the flow is. And then after it's all done,
right,
then as part of the inspection, the city and the county comes in and they actually measure the flow and make sure that the flow is adequate in accordance with the fire.
Well, I understand the development part of it. You've got adequate line size all the way back to Los Angeles Avenue. It's from Los Angeles Avenue to your storage reservoir and to your supply lines that you don't have adequate pipe sizes. Now, they're supposed to be been replacing those, but I've never seen a development where you get to develop everything first, then go in and fix the water lines, which haven't been done.
Well, again,
and I was
as
assured,
I mentioned, the lines that we put in will be tested in accordance with the county's fire department's requirements in order to make sure that the hydrants that are there and that the sprinklers that are inside of every building will get the proper flow to be able to retard fire. So that's really the issue. The issue is not what's happening anywhere else in the county. The issue is when the county does a new development, can they come in and measure whether or not you have adequate pressure in order to provide fire protection. We do that in every single development we do. There's always a fire flow test.
But
I've been doing this for 25 years, so I
you
definitely
have to have a
understand that part
supply
of the process.
to that.
Excuse me?
You have to have a supply to that.
I understand. I can't speak to what's the pressure in the supply. I can only tell you that the county will come out and they will test
Jim.
all of our.
I'm not questioning whether your hydrants are plentiful enough or your line sizes in your development's plentiful enough. I know that there's a large line that goes down there and serves all that. My question is, how do you show that you have adequate water to serve that? Because I can tell you, I don't believe you do.
I can tell you that it gets tested. I've been through this so many times. They've never been in a development where the fire department is the biggest challenge you have at the end. And part of what they go through the process is this exact stuff you're talking about. They go through a flow testing. I've been through flow testing where there wasn't adequate pressure and we had to go and get pumps and everything else in order to meet that adequate pressure. But in a larger development like that, that is a key feature that gets addressed.
Jim, we're going to have to
That's
move
not
on.
something that we just kind of forget about or just kind of like, we had to make sure that, no,
Jim,
it's something we're very focused on. It's a big issue.
We're going to have to move.
Is it possible that I could see those tests? Is that possible, or is that not?
I have no idea. I mean, they're available at the county
Contact
has them, so I
Public
assume they're
Works.
public records.
Okay, Sherry Wade. Okay.
I can speak loud enough.
We need it so that it can
Oh, okay.
live stream.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt, for coming here. I just have a
My
couple of
pleasure.
questions. One, you mentioned regulation and audits, and is that a governmental agency that is doing those audits, and are those audits available for public viewing?
It is a private, it's a private accounting firm that will do the audits. I'm sure they're available for government viewing. I'm not sure the process to access them. That there's virtually nothing that we do that's not
Mr.
ultimately
Wade,
accessible.
can I interject on that question?
Sure.
The County of Ventura Planning Division is required to, in essence, determine the income levels and whether or not they qualify for position in this project. So it would be the planning department, the County of Ventura.
So the county planning department determines who goes into those units?
No, that's done by the developer. All the county planning division does is look at the records of the people that are in there, whether or not they meet the income qualifications, where they are employed, so on and so forth. So that information is public information available through the planning division.
Yes, what I'm asking for is, once the individuals are in those homes, you had mentioned that there was an audit, and what I would like to know is if that audit is available for us to see that the continual farm worker status or agricultural worker is being maintained. My secondary question is, does your company maintain information related to whether crime stats go up and traffic accidents around your facilities are increased? And are those available?
We don't keep those statistics on our own. We don't have the ability to gather those, but we have access to those kinds of statistics in areas where we operate. So we look at crime stats every time we do a development. When we look at a piece of land, we look at what the crime stats are as part of that process. So they won't be specific to our development, but they're over time and they are in an area that would include our development. So, I mean, I don't have a big compendium of those things, but you can get access to them and we can get access to them.
All right, thank you.
I think you find it surprising that
Next
crime
speaker
doesn't
is
tend to
Rick
go up in
Wall.
these areas.
Could you go back a couple slides to the map of the great exits and entries to your project, please? Sure. There, back one more. There you go, that one, thank you. So I've been looking, I've had several conversations with the Board of Supervisors, with Israel, with the supervisor himself, and it all keeps coming back now to you. What is the traffic plan? Is there a traffic plan for this project? And the reason I'm saying this is if you've been down to Somis Road and Las Posas/Upland at 8 o'clock on any weekday, it is completely impacted. And the reason it's completely impacted is because there's a high school that's a block away that has only one driveway in or out, and everyone's trying to get their kids to school because that is mostly a commuter school. There are not a lot of, over half of the students are not living in the neighborhood. They're living elsewhere throughout the county because it's a special school, or at least it's marketed as such. So the question then becomes, if you're going to have, for the sake of conversation, 200 additional cars coming out on their way to work in the morning, where do they go? There's one lane right there. It doesn't break up to 2 lanes, so just about that, right about there. If you come out and they want to go right, they're right into the middle of the traffic flow. It's impossible to come out and go left, because to come out and go left, you're going to have to cross all the traffic that's already there. Now, I've been doing this a long time. Some of you may recall when we had some other conversation on some other projects when I spoke to these. The problems that we have are, A, it's not feasible in all likelihood to put a traffic signal there because it's 110 feet from a traffic signal. And that would just completely gum up the works. And that's not counting the people coming in. The only way to come in right there is a left turn lane, and you can't quite see it, but just about that edge is a gully, a irrigation ditch that goes across. So that road can't be expanded to add another lane. So if someone stops to make a left turn into that project, there's nobody to go around them, and they're going to sit there and wait. If traffic's jammed up coming down, which it will be, because it already is, there's nowhere to go. Now, Caltrans ultimately has the oversight of that, and we all know how fun it is to work with Caltrans. So I would anticipate that that's going to be 2 to 3 years. Talking to the supervisor's response and the Board of Supervisors' response is that, well, that's on the developer to put that plan together. Okay, great. You put the plan together, you can finance it, but you don't have the authority. That's a state highway there, 34. You don't have the authority to add a lane, take a lane, you can't put a stop sign out there. So you don't have the authority to do that. So that goes to the county. The county has no plan for this. The Highway Patrol, respectfully, and again, I spent 39 and a half years with a badge and a gun. I understand the Highway Patrol doesn't have the authority to walk in and say, hey, this is something we can do. They can support it and say, hey, this is probably a pretty good idea, something to do it. This is a problem. So my question to you, since the Board of Supervisors has already punted to you, what is your plan to address that traffic problem, or do you even have a plan?
Yes, there's been a traffic study of the area. Anytime you do development like this, there's an extensive traffic study. There are a couple things. There's going to be a slow-down lane coming into the development. Coming into that main line down there at the bottom, there'll be an extended slow-down lane. I don't know the exact length of it. Okay, I don't know the exact length of it. Yeah, it might be 200 feet. So there'll be an additional slow-down lane as you come into the main entrance, and there will also be a street light that's going to be put in. So those two aspects, and then the left turn lane will stay the same.
Respectfully, that road, I don't want to mess up your tape. Respectfully, that road is not wide enough to add another lane without Caltrans getting involved already.
Oh, Caltrans is involved.
Okay, so
we've been talking to Caltrans for 4 years about this.
Perfect. So you've indicated to us that occupancy will start this year.
Yes.
So will that lane be in before occupancy is in?
No, it will not be.
Okay. So with your best guesstimate, when will that happen?
I think we're still making a determination of that. It's going to be a matter of months.
So you're confident that we're going to have a traffic plan because it won't be by the beginning of the next school year?
It will not be by the beginning of the next school year.
And probably not by the end of the next calendar year, by the end of this calendar year.
By the end of December?
Yeah.
We're working through that process with Caltrans right now. So you're saying you know something about working with Caltrans. It's been quite an involved process.
Absolutely. So that's why I have zero confidence. And I'm not disrespecting you. I appreciate you, but I have zero confidence that Caltrans and the county can get their act together in time. We're going to have an issue there. We have kids riding their bikes to school. We have people that are currently blocking the intersections because they can't get through right now. I've been down there before when the fire engines are trying to come down from the fire station to get to an emergency down the road and can't get through the intersection because the cars are blocking it. This is already happening. Add 200, and that's assuming each residence only has one car, right? the reality is, we're talking 360 residents, 500 cars is not unreasonable. Add that traffic flow in the morning and in the afternoon coming home, and I think this is bad. And I think that it may be time to start looking at hitting the Board of Supervisors up, and maybe if they can't do it, getting an injunction to prevent this from happening until there's an actual plan with a timeline on the table, because this is going to cost a life. There's going to be a life lost as a result of this, I believe. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Jean Ritter.
All right, thank you. I want to thank you for coming and talking with us. And you can see that there's a lot of emotions about this, especially about the traffic. When you talk about the traffic, one of my questions was, does AmCal have responsibility? And I think that was just kind of answered. To the traffic too, the traffic study that I looked at said 2,635 cars coming and going as a result of when the complex is completed and it's full. So that's a lot more than 200 and something cars. So that is a huge issue for all of us. Everyone in this room, that road is a lifeline for Somis residents. Every single person, tell me if I'm wrong, travels on that road every day to Camarillo. That's the only, besides 118, which is a dangerous road already. So that's why it's such a huge concern for us, and we want to see it resolved. I had a group of people that I worked with to come up with questions. Some of them have been answered. One was the governance, and I think we kind of answered that. I want to say that nobody in this room is opposed to farm worker housing. People in this room want to see the farm workers housed. They really do. We are a farming community, so we get it. So our concern is that it will end up not being used for farm worker housing. Now, when they applied for the zoning, or when they put in their application, the proposed farm worker housing complex is intended to be 100% affordable to farm workers who qualify for low income. Your website says 200 units set aside for farm workers. So I just want to know if it's 100% of the people are going to be farm workers, or is it 200 units set aside? Because that's what your website says.
100% of the units have to have at least one member from the agricultural community as a resident.
Okay.
So everyone there doesn't have to be a farm worker, but at least one person has to be there
So the complex,
in every single unit. No one will get a unit without having someone.
Maybe
in
someone
the
should go to
agricultural
your
business.
website and change the wording on the.
Yeah, if that's confusing, I think that.
Yeah,
and
I
then
think you should address that.
And certainly we're not trying to cause
No, no,
confusion.
no.
And also, I think someone made a comment about Section 8 housing, and I guess if someone has a Section 8 voucher, if it's a farm worker, which it takes time to get on the wait list to get a Section 8 voucher, then that farm worker could use that voucher as a resident just like anybody else in the state could. But a Section 8 tenant from XYZ place who was not a farm worker could not take their Section 8 voucher and get a unit here.
Okay.
You must be a farm worker, period.
Yeah, I would suggest putting that on the website, that people in the community that are concerned. Oh, I have one more question. Oh, okay. About, we had talked about parking. Your website says there's 654 spaces. For 360 units with 2 cars, you would need 720 parking spaces, and I'm sure there's going to be way more than that. So what happens when the complex fills and there's not enough parking? Is there going to be overflow parking? Are they going to be allowed to park on the street?
Well, there's not really. I mean, I guess we don't expect there to be overflow parking. I guess we're looking at. I'm pulling out my phone because I don't know every one of these statistics. But again, there's like 1 space per 1 bedroom, 1 space for 2 bedrooms, and then I guess 2 spaces for each 3-bedroom unit in the development. And we're anticipating that. Let's see, projecting phase 1 population. Oh yeah, of 778 persons with a cap of 1,000 persons. and that's in phase one, which is the first 200 units.
Right. Yes, so we were concerned about people parking,
I know. I
in
mean,
other places.
I got to tell you, it's every development that anyone does, no matter what size they do, this is one of the primary issues that people have. I live in development, so I understand the parking is important. I can only say, and I don't want to, no Pollyanna conversation, that again, we're a highly regulated industry, so we tend to be much more diligent about enforcing our rules than other people do. Because a lot of times people come up and they say, well, I've got a building near me and there's 4 units there and there's 20 people parking there. Again, a private landlord, it's much more difficult to enforce those things against a private landlord. We are private, but have government funding as part of it, so it's a much different kind of environment. So I can't tell you that there'll be absolutely no parking issues, but I can tell you that we don't overload our units, et cetera, the way you sometimes find in private
But would you
businesses.
consider, if it became a problem, using part of the property that remains as a place for people to park? So they're not parking on Somis Road?
I don't have a
or
mechanism.
the high school or at the churches?
I don't have a mechanism to do that. I mean, the entire development is under development. I guess we anticipate that there will be adequate parking there.
Also, I wanted to make a comment. How many were here for the last MAC meeting? Okay, we did have a presentation from Caltrans, which I think Mr. Cherry should probably bring them back. So I looked at their project schedule. They do have it listed as EA 39750. And what they don't have, they don't have a date, but let me just, it is on their project. State Route 34, Somis Ranch Farm Working House Complex, traffic mitigation, construct 2 VCT bus stops, add 2 right turn lanes and 1 left turn lane into the housing development. They don't have, so this was projects for 24 through 26. So what I'll do, I'll follow up on that. But I did want you to know it's a project that's listed, and they did make the presentation last time. If the chair would like, we can always have them back. So.
If I may respond to that as well, I think what needs to happen on this is your office, the supervisor's office, needs to have all hands meeting between the sheriffs, the highway patrol, everybody. Not necessarily make it public because that gets out of the middle. But we need a plan before this moves.
Totally agree, and we hear that. We work our office. I take constituent calls, as many know, every day, and a lot of them are traffic-related issues. So we work with Caltrans. They have been one of the most responsive with our office, and we've got a really good relationship with them. I think they'd be agreeable to come back and talk more about a date on that. Who is the next speaker?
Okay, Dave Cox.
Yeah, some of this might have been answered already, but I was just wondering on the income verification, who's responsible for verifying that income? And I assume that it's a total household income, so in the 3-bedroom units, that would be verifying, the income of 6 individuals in that one unit.
However many individuals are there who are working, yeah. In a typical 3-bedroom, you don't have 6 individuals who are working. A typical 3-bedroom unit, you might have 2 people who are working and 4 people who are children.
I wouldn't assume it. I would want to verify it, though.
No, I'm not assuming. I'm just telling you, typically, in my experience doing this 25 years.
So who verifies that? You guys?
We do. We have a property management team.
So you generate the data and provide that to the Planning Commission?
Well, this is what happens. As part of the compliance process, tenants come in, they provide income verification of the people who are going to be there, et cetera, and then separate, and that's to the company that does property management for us. Separate from us, we have an accounting firm that comes in and audits all of that information to make sure that the first
kind of within your boundaries, though, right?
It's not within our boundaries if somebody is auditing us, not at all. We pay them and they audit us independently. They are accountable to the state of California, so no. It's not within our boundaries. They don't work for us.
And then who's
We just have to pay for it. Just like we pay for Caltrans to do work, we pay for Edison to do work. It doesn't mean they work for us.
And then who's responsible for enforcing violations on that? And how's
The state of California, the tax credit authority here in the state. So it comes from the treasurer's office.
So how do they do that? How do they?
it's through this set of audits. So there's a whole process where, it comes from the governor through the treasurer, and then there's an organization called the California Tax Credit Allocation Committee, and they have an entire compliance group that goes through and regulates all the units, and then they also regulate you for all the units you have. So they're regulating all the units we have in the state, which is thousands, and so any violations we have on any of them impacts our ability to go forward and do any other new developments.
And is that transparent information as far as, is that?
I believe, I've never tried to go and get that information, so I assume it's transparent. We don't have control over it.
And then, one of the things people keep saying, it's 360 units, but if all the units were full, how many people is that? Individuals, 800 and something, right?
Yeah, I just gave you the statistics for phase one. I think I didn't have them for phase two, so I can get them. So it was 1,000. We said 1,000 cap for the first 200 units. So I guess another 160. You figure that's probably maybe it's 800. So maybe it's 800, 1,800 total. I'm just estimating, but I can give you the actual information. Yeah, it's a lot of people. Yep.
All right, thank you very much.
I just drove up to 405 to get here. There was a lot of people there too.
Yeah. Next speaker is Ross.
You're not going to prevent California from growing.
I didn't get a last name. Ross? Is Ross here?
Hi, I just have a question, and I think it's regarding the eligibility. Who determines the eligibility? And you say that your company determines the eligibility.
Well, we hire people who do it, so we don't do it directly. So again, we have a property, so we don't do property management. So the people who manage the direct property don't work. They work for us. We hire them. They manage whatever, 10,000 units around the state or some large number. So they do the compliance. They gather the information, and then that information is gathered in files. And all those first-year files are all audited by, there's an investor who's put money into, this is a state and federal government, everybody's put money into this. And so then they go and audit those files and make sure that they are within compliance and meet the eligibility requirements that have been set up by the state and the county.
Does the state of California give you offsets or subsidies for this proposal?
No, I wouldn't characterize them as subsidies. We compete for tax credits, which are allocated from the federal government down to the states. Okay. And so the state of California has a set of tax credits, which people like Bank of America and Prudential and various investors invest in. And then they take those tax credits and they invest the savings they make on that into these developments. So it's not quite a direct subsidy the way you're thinking, but so it's called tax credit development in this case.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Eric Taylor.
Speaking of tax credits, so one of my questions is, could you briefly expand a little bit about the kind of financing mechanisms that you used, and did you use 4% or 9% tax credit bonds?
Here's somebody who wants some really technical talk here. We use what are called 4% tax credits. And what happens is there are two main agencies here in the state. There is a tax credit allocation authority, and then there is a bond allocation authority. And so the bond group builds schools, builds roads, does all kinds of things. Larger developments tend to use tax-exempt bonds. This is a larger development. We use 4% tax-exempt bonds. We combine those with tax credits, and that combination is the primary financing mechanism for the development.
Okay.
Again, there's an investor who goes and gathers banks, et cetera. In this case, it's Bank of America was the investor. They buy the tax credits and they invest funds in there. And then there's also just a normal construction loan, which I can tell you has put us through hell, because everybody knows interest rates have gone crazy. So our rates have gone up 5 points since the time we started this project. But so just conventional financing, which we also got from Bank of America.
All right. So by using that financing, that tied you into the 55-year covenant.
Yes, to get tax credits, that ties you into, you can't get tax credits without getting to that 55. Well, I shouldn't say that. There are very few mechanisms to get tax credits without
I would assume you do.
55-year commitment of affordability in the state of California.
All right.
Other states have different rules. Some only require 30 years, some shorter, but California's 55 years typically.
All right. Second unrelated question. Do you happen to know if there are any restrictions zoning-wise relative to unrelated people living in the same dwelling unit? Is there a restriction on that within these units? Can you have multiple people from unrelated families living in the same, so you have a 3-bedroom house?
Yes.
Can you put, 12 guys that are not related, that are farm workers all in the same unit? Does that work here? Some cities don't allow that. I don't know what the rule is here.
There's an occupancy restriction that is focused on the number of people in the unit. I'm not aware of one that says that what the relationship has to be between the individuals.
Okay.
So I'd have to look into that, but I'm not aware of one that says, so for instance, if you had, I guess, 2 farm workers who were friends who said, I'm getting a place together, or one farm worker who had a friend and they were getting a place together, I don't know that there's a restriction that would say, well, you're not married, you're not partners, you can't live here. But if they said me and my 10 friends, then the answer would be just as if it was me and my 10 family members, no, you're beyond the occupancy restriction, we can't accommodate you.
Okay. So
I'd have to look into
the
that.
bottom line is you don't know.
No, I don't know if you, I don't believe that you have to be, everybody doesn't have to be related in there. I don't know what the constraints are.
You said earlier that it was per family unit, one member of the family unit that was open to families, and one member of the family unit had to be involved in agriculture. Now you're telling us that they don't have to be family members.
I'm actually a lawyer, and you really are getting into some linguistics here, aren't you? Let me be completely clear. Per unit, there needs to be one agricultural worker in each unit. If I use the word family unit, then maybe I used it incorrectly. Per unit. Again, in the determination of what it makes a family, I don't know what that rule is in California of what's considered a family, whether you, again, what level of relationship you have to have. But I'm sure there's probably regulations on it, so that's the kind of thing that's a technical question I could get answered, I'm sure.
Thank you, Mr.
So I
Pratt.
don't mean to shy away from that.
The next speaker is Steve Jambrowski.
About 4 years ago, I attended a meeting with, I think it was Kathy Long was our supervisor at that time, and some other members, people here attended a meeting discussing this project maybe 4 years ago. And at that time, the 2 issues that were brought to Kathy was verification that the people would be actually farm workers and that it was not a subterfuge of some sort to have a developer develop and go against the SOAR Act and the understanding of the master plan at that time, which was the last time around was that that it could be development of farm sites on farm sites, that there would be housing built on a farm where people were farming was the intention of the SOAR Act. The SOAR Act was about having environmental free spaces here in the county of Ventura where people themselves who lived in cities voted for the SOAR Act so that there would be green belts. And this is a first infringement of the green belt. And fortunately for Somis, from an appearance standpoint, it's right next to Camarillo where it kind of already built up and it doesn't sit as an eyesore. The second issue was the access and egress from this property. And at that time, I told Kathy that there would be dead people on that road if there was not a traffic signal or some other way built in there. It's 50-mile-an-hour traffic there. There'll be carloads of 4 people going to a farm, making a left-hand turn to go to work to the farm areas. The other direction is towards Camarillo, and there's not farms there. And these issues were well-known years ago, and Kathy's, that's her first name, basically said the county's under a lot of pressure to come up with low-cost housing and live with it.
Thank you, Steve.
Pat, real quick, let me make a comment on that.
Sure.
It wasn't Kathy, although Kathy Long wasn't very good at her job either, but it was Linda Parks, just for the record. And the reason I wanted to make a comment is because you brought up something that I wanted to say at some point tonight anyways, but in 2017 and 18, we were looking at Caltrans traffic studies for this project, water studies for this project, and it's really nice that everybody's here tonight, but normally the 5 or 6 of us sit here and look at 2 people. No. You guys need to come in 2017, and maybe we had a chance to make some noise and get better answers here, but it's every other month, and you guys got to come more, because now this is done, right? And a lot of the questions that we're lobbing at this gentleman, I mean, they figured out the loopholes, they used them, you know, some of us try and find loopholes in our jobs too. And so it's really, as much as I'd like to blame him, it's not their fault. We didn't get loud enough 6 years ago, and we got to take some ownership of that and start, because all of us are aware that there could be more projects, so we need to start being diligent going forward. That's it. Thanks, Pat.
All right, thank you. The next speaker is Diane Anders. Diane?
Could you go back to the income and the different sizes of units? I'm just wondering do you have more applicants than 10% in the 30% income in that lowest income? Are you having to turn away people with less income so that the 60% of the units or 59% of the units in the high income bracket can be accommodated?
I'll answer it this way. I haven't had a single development the whole time I've been doing this when we haven't had to turn away tenants. I have a development in downtown Los Angeles with 100 units. We have 10,000 applicants.
I think my concern is that such a high percentage of the units are set aside for the highest income that you accept. And that doesn't work for farm workers.
You would think. You might think that, but that's actually not true.
Well,
there are plenty of applicants for those units. Farm workers make more money.
But is there a higher percentage being turned away from the low-income applicants than from the high-income applicants?
I don't have it broken down that way
That
in terms
would be
of what the
a big concern for me.
That you would want to have more people with lower incomes having
able,
access.
yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. And I can tell you that that's a goal for the state, is to accommodate folks with lower incomes. I'll tell you one of the challenges with it, and it goes to a comment that I made earlier in this. As a person who's come from relatively low means, is if everyone around you is in the same desperate situation that you're in, who refers you to a job? Who shows you, who gives you access to something else? That's my issue with this kind of ghettoization of affordable housing, is that you don't have somebody refer you. Almost every job I've gotten has been through a reference, through someone who knew someone. It wasn't because I sent in a resume. But when you're in these areas and no one's working or everybody's in a desperate situation, there's no one to refer you up. And that's why we try and do more mixed. That's why we try and do more mixed income developments.
That makes a lot of sense. But in your 3 lower categories, there are fewer available places than in your biggest category.
Yep.
You add up those 3 that come before it, and it's less than that 59%.
And part of that is the gentleman who raised the question, who made a comment about the kind of specific financing that we use. So different kinds of tax credits finance different kinds of transactions. So he mentioned these 4% tax credits, then there's something called 9% tax credits. they tend to reach folks who have even lower incomes more easily. And so there's always this big challenge of how do you get these transactions financed. They're financed for a combination of the tax credits and then conventional loans, just like you would have on a mortgage on your house, which means that you got to have a certain amount of income in order to pay your mortgage. Same thing here. You have to have a certain amount of revenue in order to pay for the cost of the land and pay for the cost of developing it. And so if I had all those people in here who are all at 30% of area median income, fundamentally what that would mean on a more global respect is that you'd have to have more subsidy in order to make this development work. So the average person from the state of California would have to put up more money in tax dollars to make this work, because you have to subsidize those folks, because the cost of the housing is the cost of housing. It's $200 million to build. Oh, no, I understand exactly what you're saying, because I was asking the question when we started was, what are the incomes of farm workers, and how will it skew, and how do we attract the right, the group of people that can finance it? But we're in the course of leasing it up, and we haven't had a difficult time finding people who are in 60%.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Next speaker is Jamie Stevens.
Good question, though.
I said that right? Sorry if I mispronounced.
So are you talking about federal taxable income? Or are we talking gross? And are you saying that the most there'll be 6 people, or is that adults?
No, that's total people.
Okay.
It's not just adults.
And the income is at W-2? If you're saying that there's no resident.
There's more than one way to do it. So you can have a W-2. Some people aren't paid on W-2. So sometimes they have to provide some level of cash receipts and other things. But yeah, it's federal gross income. So it's based, this is not your AGI. This is not your adjusted gross income. This is based on your gross income. And so the idea is that you wouldn't have to pay more than 30% of your gross income on housing. That's what the entire affordable housing industry is built upon, that theory.
And how are you going to deal with the maintenance? Because you would think a property like this would have HOAs to keep up that, the pools or the parks or whatever I saw.
Yep.
What does that look like?
We have maintenance. We have funds for maintenance that are set aside. So as part of the overall underwriting for the development, you have to show that you're going to be covering the costs of maintaining both your janitorial, say, services and sewer and electric, and folks have utility allowances, so all the maintenance is incorporated, along with a reserve for replacement, which is whatever, would be boring, but whatever, $250 to $300 per unit per person per year has to be allocated, just like security deposits, in order to take care of it. But again, I think we have many developments, and I think that our record, if you look at developments, we've had 20 years, and they are not in poor shape. They're well maintained.
Okay, because I work for the county myself, and they are slow. Even to move people, it gets pushed back, to move buildings, to lease buildings, to go in front of the Board of Supervisors, it takes forever. So I have a teenage driver, I have another one coming up, and I think it's going to unfortunately cost us some of our kids or the community's kids before you go, oh shit, we got a problem, they actually have to fix it.
I'm not sure which problem you're referring to
The traffic.
specifically. Okay,
The traffic. Because I have a 17-year-old, I have one coming up next. And what is going to push them to go any faster? Because I'm telling you, they're snails.
You know what? We have the exact same issue. Trust me, I have that issue. Caltrans is a major pain, is one of the most difficult agencies we deal with in the state, bar none. I have a development in Long Beach where all I was doing was putting in some improvements inside a retail center on the ground floor, and it's probably taken 3 months to get the permits from Caltrans to do that, and there's no work being done on the Caltrans side, nothing going into the road.
And what's
So
gonna
that's
go,
government bureaucracy. I have no, it
and what's going to
impacts
go
us tremendously.
on for the cars? You have a bunch of cars, and you're not going to have any oversight of registration or insured, so we're just going to have a bunch of people having accidents, and those that can afford insurance are going to be paying for all the uninsured motorist accidents?
Well, we do check to see what we make sure that people have licenses and licenses that are up to date. in
What
the
about
development.
insurance and registration on cars for all those cars and all those drivers?
Well, you have to have a license. You have to have, in order to have registration or get plates, obviously. I don't know that we monitor everyone's insurance, but no one's monitoring everyone's insurance in every development. So we don't go as far as going and making sure that
But you're
people
going
who
to
have
make
cars
sure
monitor
that
insurance.
those cars that are parked on your property have current registration.
Yeah, we don't let people just park their cars and store cars on the property. That's something we manage. That's correct.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Our next speaker is Amy Servini. Sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Thank you. Actually, most of my questions have been answered, but my main concerns were with traffic, and you have answered sort of what's going on with Caltrans right now, so I appreciate that. I came out here tonight because of the rumor mill going around about another property, which I absolutely would not support, a property farther down on Somis Road, so I'm very glad that that's not a property in the works. And I'm assuming this property is already going to happen, and it's already here, and it sounds like you've been very patient answering our questions. So other than looking into the traffic issues, I appreciate everything you've come out to say. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Dominique Gurel.
Hi. First, I wanted to talk about the water and the fire stuff that Jim was talking about. He runs all the water in Somis, every single pipe. So if he says there's going to be a problem, there's going to be a problem.
Yeah, all I can speak to is the
you should
regulation.
look into that.
All I can speak, I can tell you that, again, this is not a small issue. This is not something.
No, it's going to be big.
No,
if
I'm
he
just
says
saying
it's
that
not there, it's not going to be there.
My point is very simple. Again, this isn't our first rodeo. That's why I showed you that we have over 10,000 units. We've done many, many developments. I've personally done many developments. There's never been one when there hasn't been a big discussion about fire lines, hydrants, and fire flow. And when it's been an issue, it's been an issue. And sometimes it's been expensive issue. But there's never been a time when we haven't looked into it carefully. As you know, I'm sure just dealing with the politicians you have, there's one areas where developers never get away with anything, or rarely, I'm sure. It's as it relates to the fire department, because there's no politician who ever wants to be standing in front of you and saying, I let them cut some corners, and as a result, a bunch of people got burned up. So as a result, the fire department comes in and they demand whatever they want, and they get it.
Well, unfortunately, I think you might be wrong. My husband's uncle represented all the people that sued Edison and won millions and millions of dollars. So I know that's not true. But I think you should
Doesn't have anything to do with us, though. We don't have anything to do with Edison, do we?
But it's the fire department.
Oh, okay. Well, the fire department doesn't prevent fires all over the world, I don't think. I think they just do what they can.
You should look into the water thing if he says you should look into it. My question is what about a family of 3? Where do they fit in?
A family of 3 would probably either end up in a 1-bedroom or in a 2-bedroom.
So a family of 3 would be in a 1-bedroom?
Well, I'm sure that if you had two
adults and a kid.
2 adults and a kid, they probably could be accommodated in 1 bedroom. I'm not
A
sure.
15-year-old? Because I'm not sleeping in Henry's room if he's my kid. Sorry, Henry.
Well,
he's
again,
13.
there are very specific requirements that come down from HUD that tell you how many people you can have in a unit. So that's regulated by the federal government and by the county.
So it might be.
So those aren't rules that we put in place.
So it might be a 4-bedroom?
What's that? No, there are no 4 bedrooms.
I mean,
there are 1,
might
2,
be
and 3
a
bedrooms.
4-person into a 2-bedroom. More likely? It might be a 4-person into a 2-bedroom, more
There
likely?
could be 4 people in a 2-bedroom, easily, certainly.
Okay. And then what do they have to present that they work for the ag industry? Like a W-9, W-2, a letter? Because I know that I personally live on a farm, and we have people that work for our family, and we just write them checks.
Right. So there are people, and this is actually not my main area, is kind of like exactly what the documentation is as the tenants move in. But I know that there's a mechanism if you don't have a W-2 to be able to show cash receipts, to be able to prove up your income in more than one way. I can't give you all the details, but we can send you the information on how that gets done.
How they prove that they work for ag-related?
Oh, well, no, I thought you meant the income. But in terms of the
Just
specific
ag-related.
proof,
Yeah.
I'd have to look at that. I'm not sure exactly what the certification, someone's going to tell me. Okay, go ahead.
So I work for an ag employer, so I can tell you about that because we've received quite a few BOEs. So they send a verification of employment. You have to fill it out. They are asking how long the person has been employed there, and what I can tell you is they're looking at people who have been employed long-term, so not workers that are seasonal. Those are the ones that are getting turned away. The employees that we have seen that are successful are the ones that have been employed at least 3 years. So hopefully
And
that.
when you say employed, you mean like W-9 or just checks?
W-2,
or the owner of the
continuously
property?
employed.
What about the owner of the property writing a letter?
We haven't
I don't
come
know.
across. We don't do. I mean, that's not
That's
our
just what
case.
you guys do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just anyone who's having their mailboxes broken into, if you purchase one from Fulkerson's, Buffums can't even get into it after an hour and a half. So, just so you know.
That's no advertisement there. So.
But again, and I know I didn't have a great answer on that, so again, that would be an example of, yes, I don't know everything, and so we'll get the answer, and we'll just kind of make sure that's available either through the county website or
Israel,
some other mechanism in terms of what specific proof. I just don't happen to know the
Before you go, I believe,
document they provide.
I believe the fire flow issue can be addressed by Joe Pope,
Yeah.
the water department.
So I already have that down. You and I have spoke. I went to Joe on that question to ask him specifically, and I know that you're talking about the supply to along here, and you had brought it up as the first time I'd heard about it. So what we do, the nice thing about working for the supervisor is we do cut through a lot of red tape very quickly. I've handled 304 constituent cases last year, largely because they do take our calls pretty quickly. Joe and I already have a meeting scheduled to go over that, and also the exposed water pipes that Tyler had brought up. So, so we are aware of that from the last meeting, and we but I don't have an answer completely on that. Plus, you mentioned they put 2 of them on the same side.
Well, yeah, that's another issue.
Okay, all right. I have that issue down, so we are aware. All right, last one, I think.
Okay, last speaker is Pat Arkin. She's here. Way in the back.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you. This is working. My brain's a little tired. But I am concerned about a couple of comments you made that I just sort of, for the future, because I think this community is concerned about this type of farm worker housing project as a potential precedent to do all kinds of mischief. And you said a couple of things I just want you to keep in mind if this community ends up having to come forward, or other communities in the county, on the subject of a precedent, because, gee, I'm panting. Of course, I've got the stupid mask on. You said when someone asked about, have you built any farm worker housing, and you said no, and you said, what's different about it from affordable housing? And you also referred to ghettoization and experiences with Detroit and elsewhere in the city of Los Angeles. And I just want to point out that there's this thing called the Ventura County General Plan that wants to protect agriculture in Ventura County, and wants projects of the kind of density that you do, which are worthy projects. No one's questioning, I think, the quality or whatever. I'm not getting into that. But density like that has to be in the cities, not spreading out into the unincorporated county. Ventura County is trying hard not to become Orange County, Los Angeles County. And the cities aren't ghettos, to my knowledge. affordable housing, farm worker housing needs to be where the urban amenities are, where the libraries are, where the restaurants are, where the movies are. So I think I'm just raising the subject that there's this thing called the Ventura County General Plan that has very deliberately, for scores of years now, tried to preserve agriculture in Ventura County. So I hope these kinds of projects will be in the cities, or the cities aren't ghettos, and there's a lot of available land in the cities. You can drive through Ventura and parts of Oxnard. There's room for higher density projects like this density. That's a lot of density that you're putting in there. There's nothing wrong with them being in the cities, and that's where I think the county general plan wants them to go. So I wasn't prepared to talk tonight. I'm doing a crappy job of it, but I wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Pat had mentioned the county general plan, but there's also the guidelines for orderly development, which basically stipulates that high-density projects should go in cities. This project is 22 dwelling units per acre. That's pretty high density. So there are other aspects of regulations that go into existence as projects come forward. This project was fundamentally supported through the use of farm worker housing, and hopefully it'll remain as farm worker housing. But in final, that's basically all the time that we have this evening.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Can I do just a quick question?
Yeah, I have a question here, if I might. I think most of the folks here are concerned about property that was purchased recently by the individual that sold the property to you. And I think that's where most of the folks are concerned, is that are you aware of any preliminary discussions about additional farm worker housing in Ventura County other than the one that the young lady behind you, talked about in Ventura City?
That's the only other development that I have anything to do with.
No. Are you aware of any ongoing discussions with anybody about?
No.
Primarily farm worker housing. That's the only out from the SOAR initiative, would be farm worker housing.
Yeah, the only two that we're aware of, and again, I would check with the county planning department because they would be the best source, is this one, the Somis, and then the one in Ventura.
Okay. The issue, I think, is the board would probably agree. This quickly got out of the Ventura County Planning Department's perusal when the state of California drove the initiative for this farm worker housing. And so, am I incorrect in that? Yeah. So I'm not sure how much control we have in terms of additional kinds of farm worker housing being placed in an unincorporated area or not.
No, I agree with you, Jack, and that was a point I was going to make, is that, like I said before, it's nice everybody's here. Try and keep showing up, because the person that a lot of your comments should have been heard by tonight snuck out the back door very early. He's our representative from the county.
So
He's not. Hold on, Israel. I'll finish. Thanks. Appreciate it.
I'm over here.
Okay. He's not listening, and he's not going and fighting. So you guys need to call his office, send his emails, and make sure he's here to listen, because he's the only person. The county got this project down the line really far, and Linda Parks did a very good job of deceiving all of us, sitting right here in this room telling us things that were not true. So that's who we need to be watching, is our county representative, because a lot of these questions started with the county, not AmCal. Whether you like what they do or not, that's, everybody has their opinion on that. but the county let this happen. And that's who we need to be focusing a lot of these questions on, is our supervisor. Go ahead.
If I may, you guys are the MAC. You brought this forward to the supervisor. The supervisor asked Mr. Pratt to come here tonight, knowing he didn't sneak out the back door. He serves in the Navy, and he's got to be on a flight. He's got to get about 3 in the morning to get on his flight to serve on his Navy commitment. So he didn't sneak out. He said, if they ask questions, we have the cameras. He's going to watch the feed, and I'm going to give him all the questions that you guys have been bringing up. So if he wanted to not address this issue, we wouldn't have had this on there, but he does. He heard you guys.
One other thing that I'd like to bring up, since we talked about planning, is that Israel and the supervisor have asked us to put together an area plan. And Israel can explain what that is to everybody. It's very important that everybody here and everybody in the Somis area, unincorporated areas, get involved.
So we started the business plan process because when we started in office, which was a year and 2 months ago, Chair Richards had sat down and I asked, what are the topics that we need to know about? Plus, we'd already been watching a lot of the Zoom meetings from before. And one of the topics that came up is you heard the conversation about the county has a general plan. Well, some communities, in addition, like Ojai, have what's called an area plan. Thousand Oaks has an area plan. It is part of the general plan, but it actually supersedes the county. So, in part of this planning process, and I have to have Tyler's been saying, to come out. We need you guys to come out. And we've been seeing the attendance growing. But part of the planning process tonight, one of the next items which we're going to have to table was creating the vision statement. We've already been working on a SWOT analysis, which determines some of your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that you're facing here. But the whole purpose of doing a plan is to try to get ahead and not be reactive. And he's exactly right. Not enough people showed up. How many years ago, Tyler? 6 years ago? Okay. The whole purpose of this MAC is to bring attention to the supervisor those items that you feel are priority. The business plan and the area plan will spell those things out. That's your way as a community telling us what we need to work on. Let me tell you, I don't know if you know who Supervisor Garreau is, but he was already a prosecutor of Ventura County. He was your assemblyman who represented this area. He was deputy mayor for Los Angeles, and he's also now the supervisor. He's not new to handling legislative items, and he doesn't shy away from stuff. If he would have, he wouldn't have had this on the agenda tonight. He's the one that invited Mr. Pratt to be here tonight. So I want to assure you that we do take these things seriously, and that's the reason why you do need to show up. We're going to, I know, have to table this for the next meeting, but we are working next into the vision and then goals and objectives and then the area plan as well. But again, as a MAC, they have to vote on whether or not they want to do an area plan, which is something that's going to come up. So does that help answer some of the questions? Plus, my business cards are here. So my job is to take your calls, which I do willingly, and I often do, and we work on things, and that's what I get paid for. So I'm available for that as well.
I think next.
It was a lot of property in Somis, but he recently acquired a new one.
So there is a chance that he could hook up with another developer.
Yeah, and just to be clear, there's a lot of people in this room that could hook up with a developer and do what he did. It's not like it's exclusive to him, but he's good at it.
Okay.
At the state level, it could already be happening.
But you still have to have previous supervisors, I think, in my opinion, push this, worked with the state. And I am telling you the position of where the supervisor is because this is on the agenda, he's already heard this concern. And now we have the representative, the developer here. So your voices are being heard. We are not a part of fast-tracking any project. The reason why you're here and the reason why they're here is so that we can get ahead of something like that.
I don't think that Somis residents care for the growth.
What's that?
I do not think that the Somis residents care for further growth. That's why we live in Somis, is for the Somis feel.
And your voice is coming to these meetings, letting the MAC know, putting that as one of your key items in addressing growth and keeping the rural community that you've been. And
Well, I think MAC should know that, whether we're here at the meetings or not. If you're a resident of Somis, it's for the feel of Somis.
yeah,
That's just a given. And so how are all the students from this development going to be filling our Somis Elementary School?
they're going to Pleasant Valley from what I understand, right? Yeah,
Some are.
yeah, 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 because the school here couldn't, so.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but. All right. One final quick question.
Excuse me?
Do you have a Caltrans encroachment permit issued already?
Do we? This is my civil engineer here.
We're working on it.
Do you have an estimate of when it'll hit it?
Right now, it's looking like October.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, the area plan. No. Okay. On the next agenda, we're going to be putting in comments from or status of Caltrans and the working relationship with the developer. So we can invite Caltrans representatives if needed. So.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt.
Yeah, I'd like to, at this point in time, I'm hoping everybody will attend the MAC meetings as much as possible. We'll try to get those agendas out to you. Mr. Pratt, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time. So.
And I just want to thank everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. I know this is your
business item.
community, and we respect
We're going
it.
to continue item 17, table to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I make a motion that we table.
Make a motion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's second?
Second.
His motion. Jack?
Yeah.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, motion to adjourn. Thank you.